Hi, this is Rabbi Chaim Kaufman. Welcome to our 58th installment of the Torah portion of the week. We are holding by Parshas Chayei Sarah, where Sarah dies. Avram buys a burial place for her, pays through the nose, and the story of finding a shidduch, finding a wife for Yitzchak, that Avram sends Eliezer, and he tells Eliezer to only find a wife from his family. So Eliezer goes on his way, and he prays and lets out this prayer of what type of woman that he's looking for Yitzchak. So in chapter 24, verse 14, Eliezer says, "Let it be that the maiden to whom I shall say, 'Please tip over your jug so I may drink,' and who replies, 'Drink, and I will even water your camels,' her will you have designated for your servant, for Isaac. May I know through her that you have done kindness with my master." So Eliezer prays that he wants a sign. He wants God to give him a sign and say that this woman who's going to also give drink to him and to his camels, if I hear a woman say that, then I know for sure that is going to be the sign. This is the right woman for Yitzchak. One question, actually there are a number of questions here. One is, how could Eliezer rely on a sign? Really, for a Noahide, right, there's going to be a question, can you rely on signs? You know, these type of things, or for a Jew for that matter. Can they rely on a sign and say, well, if this happens, then I'm going to make a definitive answer, or I'm going to do something like this or like that? That's one question we'll deal with. Second question is that why this specific character trait? What is so special about the fact that she's going to give to him to drink and to his camels? Which seems actually superhuman, because camels drink a ton. You're talking about seemingly a young child at the time. So why is, filling up for the animals and for him considered the character trait that is going to be good? It's going to be a good match for Yitzchak. The first thing is relying on signs or omens. For a Jew, it is definitely forbidden. The reason is because if the Talmud says, if a person drops pita, bread, out of his mouth, and he says, "Oh, because I dropped this bread out of my mouth, then then I'll do this, I'll do that, or I'll do the other thing," that is forbidden. Or he says, "No, I'm not going to walk under a ladder, it's bad luck," right? If I do walk under a ladder, then this, that, the other thing. Or what happens, God forbid you see a black cat. People are superstitious about black cats. If it is a black cat, then, if a person says, if they see a black cat, then they won't put money in the bank, or they won't, give somebody a loan, or whatever the case is going to be, that is going to be forbidden. Why? The reason is because you're giving power to something that doesn't have power at all. You're relying on something, on an omen or a sign that has no legitimacy, has no validity. It's superstitious. We don't believe in superstitious things. So therefore, Eliezer, how could he rely on it? Now, for a Noahide, sorcery is going to be forbidden. Right? You're not allowed to bring up souls. You're not allowed to play with Ouija boards, these type of things. Also, seemingly, it should be forbidden to rely on a sign. Now, again, this sign, a person could see a comet. Well, that's probably not so common. But a person would say, all right, if I see the sun, or it's a cloudy day, I'm going to, do X. So, you're not allowed to do that. As a Noahide, it should also be forbidden, because you're relying on something that is fiction. So there's no question over here how Eliezer could have relied on this omen. Even if you say he's not a Jew, just like Abraham kept the entire Torah before it was given, so too Isaac, so too Jacob. Exactly what the Torah looked like for them and what they kept is a very good question. But, who's to say Eliezer's a Jew? And even if he's not Jew, again, it probably seems that it would be forbidden for him to rely on this omen or on this sign. So, how could he have done it? In any case, how could he have done it? So, the commentaries say that even though he did it, he didn't rely on it 100%. In other words, he said, okay, if she shows this, this specific character trait, then she'll be the one. Now, if he relied on it 100%, that would be forbidden. But if he kept it in mind and didn't rely on it 100%, okay, that should be okay, because he's not fully relying on the sign. Now, according to this, you might say, according to the verses, it looks pretty clear that's what he's doing. In other words, he's praying and says, God, if you show me this, I'm going to rely on it. Now again, it's not 100%. There is levels of doubt over here. So, it wasn't finished in his mind that says, oh, if she only does this, that's it. I'm going to rely on it 100%. Right? Again, even if you want to say, really, that's what the verses say. Right? That's what it seems to say. But you have an issue. You have an issue that he can't say that. He can't rely on it 100%. If he relies on it 100%, it's a Torah prohibition. Right? So, if it applies to Noahites as well to Jews, he's not going to do that. So one answer, or potential answer, is not allowed. He didn't rely on it 100%. So there's this idea of, just while we're on this for a second, the idea of sorcery, and all these things are forbidden, certainly for a Jew, certainly for a Noahide, also should be forbidden. It's like playing with the dark side, in a certain way, and therefore you're not allowed to tap in. It's very easy to tap into this. All you have to do is know what to do. So if you tap into it, you're basically playing with fire, Jew or non-Jew. Because a Jew, even as it's brought down, even if they use an ineffable name of God to save the Jewish people, right, or to save somebody, so a person's not allowed to do that. So Talmud says, or it's brought down in the Medrash, that one of the rabbis, his soul went up to heaven, and he asked the heavenly court if he's allowed to use an ineffable name of God in order to save the Jewish people before the destruction of the temple. And the heavenly court said, absolutely not, and they sent him back down. So you're not even allowed to use a pure name of God even to save the Jewish people. And there are cases of people who used names of God that their fate was, even for the sake of a mitzvah, they ended up dying. Or they got punished severely for doing so, even if it was for the sake of a mitzvah. So, certainly for a Jew, and a non-Jew, these are things that you are absolutely 100% playing with fire. And there are a number of stories that I'm not really going to go into, but there are a number of stories that I've heard personally of people using, Ouija boards or using incantations to bring up souls. These things are, real things. Again, a person, if they so choose, can tune into these dark forces to bring souls up and do other things. And it's very painful for the soul to be brought back, and it's a dangerous, extremely dangerous situation. Nobody should do it. And therefore, in all these cases, it definitely should be forbidden. Now, I've been asked a number of times, what about horoscopes? Are horoscopes, forbidden? Is that like sorcery? So most people look at horoscopes as, kind of like a fortune cookie. Person goes out for Chinese food, stuff their face, afterwards get these fortune cookies, open up the fortune cookie, and it says, today's your lucky day, whatever. You say, oh, this is my lucky day. So if you believe it in 100%, and then you're going to say, it's my lucky day, I'm going to do this, that, and the other thing, okay, that's forbidden. But, fortune cookies are fortune cookies. That's all they are. With a little piece of paper inside. The piece of paper, does not relate in any way or have any power, over us whatsoever. It sounds nice, it's cute, sometimes yes, sometimes no. It really doesn't matter. The point is that we're not really giving that much stock into it. A person looks at the horoscope, and let's say it says, hey, it's going to be a bad day and whatever, and you decide to stay in bed or to stay around and not really go to it because you're afraid, okay, that's taking it too far. A person wants to be cautious, again, as long as you don't believe in it 100%, that's certainly fine, but again, I'm not even sure you have to go that far, because most people don't hold the horoscopes anyway. Horoscopes are certainly not sorcery, according to the vast majority of rabbinic scholars. So, a person wants to look at it, in theory they can. The question is, should they? Is it a good thing, that they should do, even if it's not forbidden, right? Most things we have to ask ourselves, instead of just doing things, and that is that I'm trying to make my soul closer to God. If I'm trying to, reach my potential, whatever it is. So a person has to always ask, if I do this action, is it good for my soul or is it bad for my soul? So you have to answer, is it good or is it bad? So if it's not good, or you have a doubt whether it's good, you shouldn't do it. If you don't have any doubt whether it's bad, it could be that you are fooling yourself in the process. That may be true. But all things being equal, that you say, it's not a bad thing, okay, then you can do it. Even if possibly you could end up making a mistake. But again, we want to go in the right direction. We want to go in the positive way. So going in the positive way should have a positive effect. If we do something that has a negative effect, that's a problem. And therefore we want to stay away from it. So therefore, we're going to ask the questions, is it good for me or not? Not good, you don't do it. Right? You stay away from it. So that's the idea about signs, about omens, etc. Second question was, why this specific thing? Why is it that the woman who's going to marry Yitzchak is going to be a woman that is going to ask him if he wants to drink and his camels to drink? Why this specific act of chesed, this act of loving kindness, is that the act for the wife or potential wife of Yitzchak? Now we have to keep in mind that Rivka is very young, and even as many say she's the age of 3, but the age of 3 back then, women could give birth at the age of 6 or 7, right? And there were women that gave birth that early. So it means that our bodies have changed, and we don't see that today. No one can give birth at that age. I mean, that'd be pretty miraculous if it did happen. But in general, even if you want to say at the age of 3 that she was more like a girl of 9 or 10. Right? Even so, what we witness over here, is an absolute miracle. Because if, she goes to the well, brings up the water, gives it to Eliezer to drink, okay, how much can he drink? 1 bucket, 2 buckets, maximum. He's got a whole bunch of camels. These camels can drink a lot. So imagine, a person goes to fill up their car at the gas station, right? You fill it up, takes 40 gallons, 50 gallons, whatever it is, to fill up the tank. You sit there, you pull it, you push it, it fills up automatically. Now imagine if we had to, go down to the well of this gas station, take out gas, bring it back up, fill it, bring it back. You have to do this 50 times. Right? Let's say you had a liter, you had a gallon, a jug that was a gallon. And you had to fill up 50 gallons. Well, that's going to be tiring, right? If you're younger, it'll be less tiring, but even so, even if you're younger, it's going to be tremendously tiring. You got to take this, this gallon. It's kind of heavy. And every single time, you have to fill it up. You have to go down, fill it up, bring it back up, and then stick it in the car, take it out, bring it back down. This is tremendously taxing and tiring. So if you take a 10-year-old girl that is going to fill up enough water for these water-thirsty camels that can drink gallons and gallons, I mean, it's absolutely miraculous. So there was a miracle that was done. She didn't have to crank it up. The water came up and she was able to fill it up. But even so, to give that kind of water, even if the water came to her, as the Medrash says, it's still pretty miraculous. But forget about the miracle. The idea is, she said, I'll feed you, I'll give you to drink, and I'll give your camels. How she does it and how it works out, okay, that's a separate discussion. But the fact that she wants to do it, and she's excited to do it, and she's interested in doing it, okay, that's the topic here. So, Eliezer is looking for someone with these character traits. Right? The character trait of doing chesed, even if it's beyond you. Because, in this case, it's totally beyond her. It's an impossibility for her to do. How in the world can she do it? But she does it with an open heart. She doesn't say, well, I think it's too difficult, I'll try. No, she does it with a full heart. Even if, it's going to take her a long time and it's heavy and everything else. Now again, why specifically this? This character trait is so important that I have to find it in a woman from Avraham's family that is going to marry Yitzchak. I have to remember, Sarah dies. Right? I'm sorry to ruin the beginning of the parsha. Sarah dies. So, when you have to understand who Sarah was. When she was in Haran with Avram before they left, they were busy spreading the word of God. They were, everyone was an idol worshiper, and they were speaking about this one God, who they never spoken to, never heard from, but understood that there could only be one God. So it's brought down that she worked with the women, he worked with the men, and they were bringing people to the belief in one God. Tremendously, tremendously successful. Not only that, but what was Avram's tent like? So we saw last week's parsha. He's waiting outside the tent. It's an extremely hot day. Even after circumcision, he's waiting for guests. So it's like his house is like a hotel. People came, they ate, they blessed. So their house was open for whoever came. Even if these angels were dressed up as three Arabs, right, three dirty Arabs, and they had to get, wash them up, etc. Nonetheless, didn't matter who the person was. Didn't matter if they had money, they didn't have money. They looked like vagabonds or not. They were welcome inside their house. And he fed them, and he took care of them whenever they needed. Right? That was the highest level of chesed that he did. That's the difference between him and Job. When Avram had people stay by him, he cooked them what they wanted to eat. When Job had people, he cooked them what he wanted them to eat. It's a big difference. So we see what was the house or tent of Avraham like. It was open to everybody. Anybody who needed a place, needed food, he took care of them. His wife helped take care of them. So if that was the type of house that they had, and that's the house that they ran, so shouldn't Sarah's daughter-in-law, the wife that's going to be from Yitzchak, exemplify that character trait? Because Hachnasas Orchim, having guests, there are many levels of having guests. It's not just about preparing the food and preparing the house and make sure they have a nice place to stay and all that. It's work. It's not easy. Some people like it more, some people like it less. But it's a tremendous mitzvah that a person does. So their house was open to everybody. Didn't matter how they dress, what they look like. The highest level. Because it didn't matter to them. They only wanted to help others. So if that's true and that's what Sarah represented, well, if you want that next generation to have it, you have to have someone who's like that. Because that's the house that Yitzhak grew up in. So he wants that type of house. He wants that type of wife. So he needs somebody that exemplifies that character trait. And if she doesn't exemplify that character trait, he's not interested. Right? Eliezer wouldn't be interested. Because it's not going to fit the mold of what they're looking for. Could they have taken someone from Avram's family who wasn't exactly like that, but could try and mold them? Maybe. Maybe they could have done that. But isn't it easy to try and find somebody that really exemplifies what that is and trying to make someone into something that they aren't necessarily that person? Which is why when a person gets married, this is the Torah portion speak about marriage. When it comes to marriage, each spouse is not out, to change the other. Obviously, if there's something egregious or something, that's really bad that has to be worked on, okay, it can be discussed and nurtured and, whatever. But, at the end of the day, for a person to change, they have to want to change themselves. Somebody standing over them and nagging them, they're not going to get them to change, it's going to tick them off even more. If someone's got a problem with anger or whatever it is, having someone say, I think you need to work on that. Like while they're angry. Right? The Mishnah in Pirkei Avot says, you don't speak to someone when they're angry. Until the anger subsides, then you speak to them because, at that point they're like boiling. So, when they're boiling, they say, by the way, I think you got a bad temper. They say, really? I got a bad temper? Yeah, here's a baseball bat. Whap! I just took care of my temper. Right? That's obviously not a good thing to do. Right? Not with a baseball bat either. So, we're not out to change the other person. We have to be able to live with the other person. And if there are things that are, so bad that the person needs to change, if they won't change, they certainly need to get help from it, or you have to figure out how to deal with it, in different ways. But each person is their own world. They grew up in different ways. They have different ways of looking things. It doesn't mean you can't mesh them together. It is definitely possible for people to come from different worlds, so to speak, in order to come together. Right? Not impossible. But, someone grew up with more money, so they spend it freer. Where someone came up with less money, they're more stingy in a certain way. They're more, not stingy, but let's say more careful. So there could be a clash. All right, that has to be discussed. If you don't have a budget for that, it has to be discussed how to make a budget. If you don't have all that money and you can't be a spendthrift, even if you do. Right? So there are things that have to be worked out. But to think that someone's going to change the other person, no. Right? That is exactly what you don't want. Right? Nobody wants to hear, I know you're this, that, and I'm trying to change you. Right? A person may change by themselves. They may need encouragement. They may need help. That is for sure. But certainly if they get nagged and they get reminded of it, again, depending on what it is, a person's going to know what issues they have. And if it's something bad, nobody in their right mind wants to hear about it. They don't. But don't you think they should work on it? Yes. Should they read books of ethics, speak to people, get advice, maybe go for help, if it's needed? Yes. But see, if the person comes down on them like a ton of bricks, and hits them over the head and says, you got to do this and you got to do that, the person's not home, he's not going to listen. Or she's not going to listen. Unless it comes to like, a really strong standstill. And then it's something crucial and it becomes a much bigger issue, then then it has to be, dealt with. So, the wife of Yitzchak has to possess this character trait. This character trait, is absolutely crucial. And it's not something necessarily that a person can learn. Some things it's either you have it or you don't. Can it be nurtured over time? Could be. Is it an impossibility? No. If someone wasn't used to having guests, growing up in their own house, in their parents' house, and their spouse grew up with, having guests and wanting to have guests, and you want your own space, so okay, you got to make some sort of balance. You can't have it one way or the other because it's going to destroy the other person. So you make some level of balance where both can live with it. But it could be, even with all the work that's involved, the spouse that had, never had guests before, wasn't so interested in guests, maybe he'll enjoy it. Right? Maybe over time, they'll come out of their shell. They'll actually enjoy, having these guests, even if they didn't grow up with it. Again, if it's rammed down your throat, the wife says, or the husband says, I want guests 3 times out of the month, 3 out of the 4 Shabbases, and the other spouse doesn't even want it once, there's going to be problems. Right? There'll be definite issues. So it's something that has to be worked on. It's something that has to be discussed. Because if it's not, there's just resentment. And resentment is always, a bad thing. So these are basic. I don't think I'm saying anything that is novel. The question is, do we take stock of it? Do we put it in our lives? Because the reality is, and I spoke at these festive meals that people have after someone gets married for 7 days. So I spoke and I mentioned that a marriage, is like a flower, right? It's like a plant. Guess what happens if you don't water it? It dies. I mean, you can try this at home. Take a plant and just let it sit there and don't water it. You don't water it, it's going to die. It's going to wilt, right? It needs nourishment. So, a marriage is no different. Regardless, how long a person's been married, you can take things for granted, get in bad habits, but your spouse is your spouse, and that's it. Right? So that doesn't make for necessarily a happy marriage. You're just sort of going through the motions, but, there are underlying issues that if you don't take stock of them, slowly but surely they could undermine the entire marriage and ruin it. There are a number of marriages that ended up in divorce that don't necessarily have to end up in divorce. If someone has issues, they refuse to get help, and there's nothing else to do, okay. Or if someone's brought in to try and help and they can't help, then okay, divorce is warranted. But many times we're just lazy and we don't want to work. Unless someone has mental illness or other things, we get into bad habits. Right? That's really the bottom line. We can get into bad habits. And when you get into bad habits, it shows you don't appreciate the other person. It does not necessarily you're doing that on purpose, but whatever, you get in bad habits. And bad habits are exactly that. And over time, they can annoy the other person. Someone, you can mention a lot of bad habits. We're not gonna do that. But whatever these bad habits are, whatever the other spouse doesn't like and doesn't enjoy, and verbally says, "Listen, this bothers me. Can you work on it to change?" Because it bothers me. It's offensive. It's whatever. So then, we said, well, you can't change the other person. You're right. You can't change them. But you can make them sensitive. You can make them sensitive to issues that bother you. If they say, well, if it's going to bother you, deal with it. All right, that's not an answer. It's like a slap. And no one in that type of relationship wants to get a slap. Even if it's in theory. Because they're also a human being. You can't just walk on them. You can't just do what you want because this is what you think and this is what you do, and I don't feel like changing or I don't feel like working on it, because, the bottom line is working on things to change is hard. Like Rav Yisrael Salanter said, I want to change the world. He said, you know what, it's too hard. Let me change my country. No, I found that was too hard. Let me change my state where I live. Nope, that's too hard. What about my city? Nope. What about my town? Nope. What about my street? Nah. What about my house? I'll work on myself. It's hard enough to change yourself. Forget about trying to change anyone else. Not only that, we'll take it, a little bit different realm. Somebody wants to help others. Wants to, maybe, give advice to others or whatever. They themselves, have to be exemplary whatever they're giving advice in. Because if, they want to try and get someone to quit smoking and they themselves are smoking, well, that's not really going to go very far. Not going to help them. But they have to be exemplary. They have to, have fear of heaven. They have to have a pureness of heart. They have to really want to help, not because they just think they're so great and, oh, look, this person's coming to me for advice, so I should give him advice anyway, even if it may not be so good. The person has to be qualified, to know what to do. Sometimes people, even with the best intentions, want to help out others, and the results are disastrous. They stick their nose where it doesn't belong. They don't have knowledge that maybe they think they do. And, we have to be able to say that if someone, let's say, comes to us with a question or whatever, and we have to be able to say, if it's out of our league, we have to say, I can't help you. It's not, it's not my thing. Right? That's a total act of humility, because if you say in your mind, oh, I can do this, I'll give this advice or whatever, it could be an absolute disaster. The person could have the right intention, and he could have the purest of intention. Yeah, but you could also mess people up for life by doing that. So a person has to know, when it's out of their league, when they don't know, they have to say, I don't know. So I remember on this, I asked my Rebbe a question about something. He says, I'm not sure. Some say like this, some say like that, and because of that, I'm stringent. So a few minutes later, I asked him the same question. And he said, I'm not sure. Like when, back and forth, something like this, something like that, something like that, going back and forth. And he said, because of that, I'm stringent. That was his answer. So as I was about to ask again, try and get like another level of clarity, he looked at me and said, it's better to say I don't know than to give an answer. To give an answer that may not be true. So he said, don't ask me this question again. He said, you can say in my name. You can say in my name that Moshe Sternbuch said, I don't know. He said, I don't know. I mean, you're talking about a Torah giant over here. According to everyone, he's like, I don't know. And that was it. So 3 minutes later, I look over, he said, I said I don't know. I said, how'd you know what I was going to say? He said, I can see it on your face. That's greatness. That's greatness because he knows who he is. And he knows what he knows. But even so, when he doesn't know and he's not sure, he's like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. He's not embarrassed to say, I don't know. Now, also on the other end, someone asks a question or you have your own question or whatever it is, you want an answer. You go to Rabbi Google. Give me an answer. Let's go. Want an answer. Yeah, it doesn't always work like that. There are things that are complicated. I had a case once that I thought it was an open and shut case. And I brought it to my Rebbe about it. And he says, no, so what do you think? So I said, I think like this. Boom. Question's answered. I said, according to this, it should be like that. So he said that, this is one of the hardest questions I've had to deal with. He said, look at my book. Look what I wrote. There's a response on it. He said, go take a look at it. So I'm going through this whole thing. And whatever, it wasn't as clear cut. At least At least in his eyes. It wasn't clear-cut at all. My eyes was relatively clear-cut, in different ways. But, what we see isn't always what it is. He had a whole different way of looking at it. So, and because of that, and he had a doubt, he wasn't willing to bring a leniency, in this case because, he had a doubt. Other rabbis didn't necessarily have a doubt, but he himself did. And he said, I'm not willing to go that far. Even for the smallest percentage of what it may be, he said, I'm not willing to go that far. And that was it. So, one thing is, and a lot of people don't know this, because a lot of people have gaiva, they have serious issues thinking they are greater than they are, and they think they should give an answer when they don't necessarily know if it's the right answer or not. They'll give their opinion. As my Rebbe says, you don't know. Just say you don't know. And you're not sure, then give an opinion that may not be right. I mean, don't we all give opinions that we're not sure on? We shouldn't. Well, there, someone's asking my opinion, I'll give my opinion. It's strange, though. Because if we don't know something, we'll make believe as if we do. As if we, like we read sort of an article about it, so that makes us an expert. Right? Saw it in the newspaper, if newspapers still exist. Right? Read it in the newspaper, I saw it online, saw a few different articles. Yes, that must be true. Maybe yes, maybe no. Right, but how can you say authoritatively, like, this is what I think? How do you know? You researched it, you understand it fully, you looked at all different angles? No. You thought about it for a split second, and said, oh, this is what it should be, and that's it. But many years ago, I learned this fundamental idea. As the Mishnah Perkei Avos says, you have to know what your place is. You can't think you know more than you do. You have to eat a little bit of humble pie. And I've also been approached, by people that, well, I think the Torah is like this, and I can't imagine the Torah is like that. Like, they're giving, like, an authoritative opinion on a book they've never read. And a book they've never studied. Never learned. Say, well, I think this. So, okay, that's very interesting. Did you read the Bible from cover to cover? 5 books of Moses. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. You read the book from cover to cover? No. Did you read any of the other books? Joshua, the prophets, Ezekiel, Isaiah. No. Did you read any of the minor prophets? Hosea, Yoel. No. Did you read Psalms, the writings, Proverbs, Book of Ruth? No. You've never read any of the 24 books of the Torah, what we call Tanakh? No. You ever studied Talmud, Medrash, everything behind what the Torah says? No. You can't even read Hebrew. Right? You got a first grade education. Now you want to come to me and say authoritatively, I think the Torah says this. I don't care if you think you have a PhD. This is what I think. Does that make any sense? Anybody out there watching, nod your head. Does that make any sense? No, it doesn't. But people do it all the time. Not just in Torah. I can tell somebody, I think you should invest $5 million, tell your company, to invest it, in this stock. Why do you think so? Because that company begins with the letter C. My name begins with the letter C, my Hebrew name. Right? My Hebrew name is Chaim, begins with C. So you should invest in that. And I looked into it, and this company has a few people on the board I like, and this and that. Someone who's an expert, in financial things. You're going to listen to that? Even if I go on this whole diatribe thinking that I know what I'm talking about when I don't? No. But people do it. So when it comes to money, you say, oh, that's different. No one's going to listen to you for that because you sound like a quack. And who's going to invest $5 million based on, like, shooting darts? Nobody. But see, about anything else, it doesn't matter what the subject is. People talk authoritative when they don't have any idea what they're talking about. I don't think it's just in America. It's all over. I've seen it all. I've seen it all over. People giving opinions, and I just sit there and say, "Really? That's really what you think?" So every so often, I'll jump in. I'll say, "That's not true. Here's the source." That's it. But a person has to know where they're holding. And one of the more difficult, difficulties, in the conversion process, and even being a Noahide, is that you have to feel a little bit uncomfortable. You're outside. You're an outsider looking in. So there are a lot of things that, you sort of got to push aside. What I thought I knew, and you got to start from scratch. That's humbling. Doesn't mean you can't question, but the way you question and how you do it is on a totally different plane. All right, the video I did on Tanakh Talk for these controversial issues, one of the things we looked at was about all these statements, or a number of statements in the Talmud that don't seem to make any sense. I mean, a lot of good questions that makes Jews look kind of bad if you take them out of context, which a lot of people do. So I thought, wow, this will be a hot topic. So what's the answer? So the first thing that I mentioned is, that a person who's not in it, and hasn't seen the whole picture, and knows how it all works, you can't even ask the question. Because you're missing a tremendous amount of information. You say, this statement is racist. Yeah, it does sound racist. I agree, 100%. Oh, so you agree it's racist? I said, no. I said it sounds like it's racist. That's not what it means. They said, really? What does it mean? I said, okay, this is what it means. Really? That's what it means? Yeah. That's what oral tradition tells us what it means. Yeah, but at face value, you're right. At face value, it looks pretty bad. It looks like we're putting, our 3-year-olds to get married and to do all kinds of things at a very young age. Yeah, it looks like that, but that's not what's going on. Right? In that case, there are all these cases that discuss, if this happened, what's the law? Does she get a dowry? She doesn't get a dowry. What's the case? It's not, let us do this and let's send out our kids at very young ages and do all these different things because we're pedophiles and all these other things. That's not true. If this case happened, what do? That's the question. It's not let her go out and do what she wants, make her ownerless, turn her into a prostitute. That's not what we're doing. Not in any way, shape, or form. Oh, but that's what the Talmud says. Yeah, that's what it says, but you don't have any idea what it means. Right? You're on the outside looking in, so now you want to tell me that's what it means? That's not what it means. You want to twist it into a pretzel? Okay. You want to give your own spin on it? Give your own spin on it. You want to know what the reality is? Okay, ask someone who knows. Don't try and think you're going to figure it out on your own. Doesn't mean you're stupid at all. But you're lacking basic things that you have to ask someone who's an expert. And then you get the perspective. But if you ask some guy in the street, hey, Joe, what do you think about this? Oh, this looks pretty bad. Get 20 other people to agree. And none of them are on the no. They're not on the inside. So why in the world should we take their opinion seriously? Because they have big mouths. And they yell and scream and jump up and down. And this is bad. And they'll yell and they'll curse and this and that. Okay, so let them jump up and down and yell and scream. And let them curse till their tongues fall off. Fine. But at the end of the day, they are misinterpreting the text. That's their choice. They want to get the real answer, they can get the real answer. So in this side point over here, we have to realize there's a big world out there. There's a lot of information. But it's in many ways, it's still unbelievable that someone could come across as trying to be authoritative and they don't know diddly squat. That's really quite annoying, actually. And then they try and disrespect you and say, oh, what do you know? and you only, you're only getting what you think, and trying to discredit you to make themselves look better. Yeah, it might say that like this, but it doesn't say it like this. There's such a thing as called being intellectually honest. Most people don't have it. That's really the bottom line. Most people don't have it. It's something we have to attain. When we're searching for truth, and we want truth, you have to ascertain, is this true or not? What's it based on? What can I look at to get to the truth? Who can I learn from that has the truth? Well, for goodness sakes, eat a little bit of humble pie. Don't bite off more than you can chew and think you know. There are plenty of people out there that are just very loud. And they say, this is that, and this is the other thing, and conversion is, and the rabbis do this, and, a lot of overgeneralization. Some things may be true. Some things definitely may be true. But there's a lot of hot air in between. Probably mostly hot air. And then when you point it out to someone, either they'll listen, and you can have a conversation, or they'll just keep saying things, and it's like talking to a missionary. Same thing. You ask them a question, you have a conversation, they go on to the next question when they don't have an answer. Say, this isn't fair, and that's not fair, and this is that, and where's the intellectual honesty? The intellectual honesty gets thrown out with cognitive dissonance. They don't want to listen. They have an agenda. Their agenda is to make themselves look good and make you look bad. That's the agenda. And I don't care what you say, this is what I believe. Right? How many times have I heard that? People don't know anything. Says, this is what I believe. I said, but you have all this information that says not like that. The next generation looks like me because this stuff is passed down and you're going to be a fossil. But that's my opinion. So that's not an argument. That's someone holding on for dear life, to a life raft as it's about to go over Niagara Falls. No barrel over here. They're holding on for dear life. Saying, I'm still sticking to my opinion. This river's going to go back upstream. Bye. Na 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 na. Na na na. You're dead. Finished. Well, there are plenty of people out there like that. They'll stick to their opinion. They don't care what your opinion is. No matter how much evidence that you want to show them, they're not interested. Why? Because it might prove them wrong. But you come without knowledge. And you misrepresent and turn it into a pretzel. At least admit that's what you're doing. I'll sleep better at night. But to think you're going to come out authoritative and really what the Torah says when you haven't even read it, or you can't read it, and you don't know anything. So that in my language is called chutzpah. Also called stupidity. But, it's more chutzpah than anything else. So we have to know. We have to know what we do know. We have to know what we don't know. And if we don't know, we have to go to those sources that do know. And if they don't know, you go to a source that knows. Sometimes the answer may be because God said it, and that's it. Doesn't matter how many times things get misrepresented, or whatever the case is, but, there has to be a lot more humility in the world. It's not just, I'm right, you're wrong, and that's it. You can't have a discussion. But most people don't want the discussion because, it could get volatile. People could yell and scream because they want to prove that their point is right. But again, someone says to you, this is what I think, and you say, well, I have evidence, maybe not like that. You interested? They say, no, this is what I think. There's no one to talk to. Move on. They're not interested in the discussion. They're interested in saying, I'm right, you're wrong, I'm not looking into anything, it's your problem. So what do? You going to argue with that? Can't argue with that. You have to move on. You have to know when to, when to sort of cut your losses. In that sense. I also want to mention I have an intro to Kabbalah class. We're discussing now Jews, the non-Jews, where they fit in. It's every Tuesday night, 9 o'clock, New York time. I also give conversion classes, no-hide classes. You can take a look at my Facebook fan page, Beyond Orthodox Conversion to Judaism, or my blog, orthodoxconversion.com, or Beyond Noahides on Facebook. Anyone wants to contact me can email me at rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RABBICHAIMCOFFMAN @gmail.com. Wishing everyone a great Shabbos.